Hello, I'm Azai. Welcome back to Sharin no Kuni. Yukyu no Shounenshoujo. Got my coffee here. And well, I've been thinking about the last episode and I feel like compared to when I was younger, this game in particular actually made me feel a lot more sad. Like, I feel like when I was younger, I could take things for what it was. That Masaomi said that even though this was a ploy made by Hozuki, that he fell in love with Mina. The current me can't accept that you can develop things like that, I guess. Even though, like, I guess it's also possible to do it, right? Something that's forced at the start turns into something real. But I don't know, I just can't seem to want to understand it, even though it makes sense. But let's just move on. This might actually be the final episode of Yukyu no Shounenshoujo, but we'll see. I don't remember. But I have to say, their relationship is quite heartfelt. It's quite nice. I do feel like playing this game when I was younger made me feel like love was this something crazy. Something crazy that you'd want. And something... I basically picture love as something that I will never have because... because of playing these sorts of games. A new morning dawned. As usual, I woke up earlier than Mina-san. I sat up and stretched. It was a bright midsummer day. A pleasant breeze cascaded in through the window. I felt strangely light. To exaggerate a bit, it was as if I were lying in an entirely new world. She began to stir and then slowly open her eyes. Ah, I'm sorry. Did I wake you up?
Yeah.
She clumsily approached me.
夢じゃなかったのですね。
I embraced her gently.
とても幸せです。
Me too. Simply holding her like this was so very comforting.
でも甘えてばっかりではいけませんね。
Hmm?
もっと強くなって正臣さんの恋人として恥ずかしくないような人間になります。
She had said something like that yesterday as well. Please, don't feel compelled to strain yourself so. I'm fine with you the way you are now.
いえ、それじゃダメです。立派に自立したいんです。
I patted her head. You know, Mina-san,
はい。
it isn't a big deal or anything. But we've been acting rather polite around each other, don't you agree? Well, as I said, it's not a big deal. I'd just like to see you break out of that polite speech pattern of yours, at least once.
言葉を崩しては義務の違反を問われませんか？
You're right. Well, it was going to be cancelled soon enough anyway.
義務が解消されたとしても、私はずっとこんな感じだと思いますよ。
I can imagine. I laughed.
何ですか？バカにされたんですか？
Not at all.
もし私が言葉を崩すとしたら、それは本気で怒った時ですよ。
She joked. I can't imagine you getting angry at anyone.
私も自分で言っておいて想像がつきません。
We both smiled together for a while. I wanted this moment to last forever. Well then.
ご飯にしますか?
No. I shook my head. She fell silent, keenly aware of my shift in attitude. Let's do that after I get back.
マサオミさん。
She looked at me uneasily. Conceal yourself here until I return. This place should be safe for a while yet. Hosuke and her troops are most likely under the impression that you were either killed by the escaped prisoner, or currently attempting escape, or are seeking asylum at the border patrol station. They wouldn't dream of her returning to her own home. What's with this epic music? My god. I'll settle everything today. But until then, we absolutely cannot afford to act carelessly. Oh, Hosuke. Are you sure? Oh, sorry, Masaomi. Are you sure that Hosuke Ari didn't plan ahead and thought that you would betray her like this? She nodded meekly.
すみません。何かお役に立てればいいんですが。
I had gotten pretty tired of hearing her apologize. Be more confident in yourself. I love your cooking. I turn around.
戻ってこられますよね。
It is against my principles to engage in battles I have no chance of winning. The odds might be quite poor, but I had to give it a shot.
わかりました。
I heard her inhale sharply behind me.
お待ちしてます。美味しいキノコたくさん用意してますね。
I left the house without turning back. I ran through a few likely prospects for what was about to happen in my head. Hosuke had summoned me here today so we could deal with the formal procedures to become a special high-class individual. I would enter her room casually and wait for my chance to strike. My plan was not without its obstacles, of course. The first would be the possibility of a guard's presence in her room. The second, of course, would be Hosuke's gun. I wasn't dealing with someone like the prisoner from last night. She wouldn't hesitate to shoot if she found my behavior the least bit suspicious. If she did have her guard with her, even finding an opportunity would prove difficult. Not that I had a choice. Hosuke was an extraordinarily level-headed and perceptive woman. It would pain me to admit it, she was clearly on a higher level than I. However, she was not without a weakness. Namely, she was a cocksure to a fault. Cocksure? What the fuck is that? Hockey, I guess? Feeling perfect assurance sometimes on inadequate grounds. Cocky, okay? Her conceit is considering us all as mere puppets for her amusement should prove to be her undoing. If I could just get rid of that precious gun of hers, she was sure to lose her cool. No, Masaomi! You don't... What if this is all still a trap, you fucking idiot? Stop! Oh my god, Masaomi. Love is blinding you, dude! And in order to stop that... it was almost time. I would have no further time to refine my strategy after entering the school building. I'd been unable to come up with a usable trump card for the upcoming showdown.
必ず現れると思ったよ。
Saburo suddenly appeared behind me.
どこ行くんだ?
He wasn't carrying Ken. Where's Ken?
前も言ったろ。キノコ狩りの時親しくなったマダムが預かってくれてる。
What do you need? Saburo grinned.
これから天帝をぶち殺しに行くんだろ。
The last time I mentioned taking a stand to him, he had chickened out. I couldn't trust him. Just lay low and look after Ken.
嫌だね。
What was he up to? I hesitate to believe that you are offering me your cooperation.
計画だけでも聞かせてくれよ。
Sorry, but I cannot trust you.
裏切らねえからさ。
He looked at me with sincerity in his eyes.
誓うよ。
I sighed and looked up at the sky.
マサオミ、俺はダチを3人も殺されてるんだぜ。頼むよ。
Fine. I was soft anyway, wasn't I? Basically, the same as I told you before. We will launch an assault and have her acquiescence to our demands. I'll take advantage of an opening in order to deprive her of her gun, and then begin negotiations when she is defenseless.
どうやって隙をつくんだ？
That depends on how well I can act.
俺が協力すれば違うんだろ？
Certainly, the chances of me taking her by surprise would rise. I pointed at the school. Are you good at climbing?
俺は完璧超人だぜ。
Then I'll have you climb up the side of the school and lie in wait outside of Hosuke's window.
なるほど。板張りの壁で掴みやすそうだし、短い時間なら途半ツールなしでも待ってられるかもな。
When I give the signal... I suppose the signal will have to be a specific phrase. Anyway, when I give the signal, you'll burst in through the window. That should allow us to create an opening for a few seconds. Guys, are you sure you should be discussing this plan of ours, like, in front of the school? Where she might be looking at us from upstairs?
数秒？
Yeah, more than enough. Saburo nodded, impressed.
即席にしてはよく思いついたな。
I made sure to survey the location upon our first arrival at the school. More importantly, what about you? Are you really going to cooperate with me? If we failed, we could bid our farewell to our lives.
いや、そんなもんはさ。
Hmm?
最初から決めていたんだよ。
By the time I cursed my foolishness, it was already too late.
悪いな、正臣。
I felt a stinging pain in my neck. Saburo had offered me no chance to resist in his nimble movements. He was holding a knife against my throat.
悪いな、マジで。でも、おめえのその作戦じゃ無理だろ。言ったろ、女が待ってるって。ダチを殺されようがおめえを裏切ろうが、俺はどうしても特別高等人にならなきゃいけないんだよね。昨日逃げ回ってたってのは嘘でさ、本当は天帝と取引してたんだよ。
What was that?
正臣が天帝に歯向かった場合、お前を捕まえてきたら俺を特別高等人にしてくれるってさ。歯向かいそうにない場合、ミーナちゃんとお前をくっつけるように仕向ければいいって言われたよ。そうすりゃ正臣は必ず反逆してくるって。
So that's why you told me what the poem meant and informed me that she was in danger.
怒るなよ。天帝に言われなくたってお前とミーナちゃんはお似合いだって。
He twisted my arm behind my back, keeping the knife pointed at me. Ugh. He then proceeded to bind my arms with some form of rope. There was no sense in attempting to resist him at this point.
さあ、歩いてくれよ。
You damn... I couldn't stand this. Was this really how I was going to go out?
どうにもならねえことはどうにもならねえんだって。
Damn it. This really pissed me off. However, Saburo's words spoke truth. There was nothing I could do with both arms bound. Hosuke was alone in the room.
こういう展開になったか。ご苦労だったな、樋口三郎。
いや、
お前が阿久津を捕まえてきたということは、つまりサイカミーナは無事で、阿久津が私に牙を向こうとしていたということになるな。
まあそういうことですね。
阿久津よ、私は宝月正臣と名乗ると言ったお前を信用していたわけではない。だから樋口を使って保険を打っておいたのだ。樋口は一度下がっていいぞ。
でも
安心しろ。ことが済んだらお前を特別高等人にしてやる。
しかし、
うせろと言っているのが聞こえないのか。
わかりましたよ。
Saburo glanced at me and left the room reluctantly. There was nothing I could have done. After Higuchi shut the door behind him, Hosuke and I were alone in the room. Hosuke offered me her usual grin, staring at my bound form.
まったく阿久津は素直じゃないな。
She brandished the gun in her hands.
そんなにサイカミーナが大事か？
I stayed silent.
家柄を取ったら何も残らないような無価値な女ではないか。
I do not share that opinion. Her smile, her sensibility, enough sympathy to care about people like my parents.
男と女など所詮は穴と棒の関係に過ぎ。
Bruh.
そんなものを愛だのと語るから人間が腐っていくのだ。
I guess humans want something more, you know, Hosuke Ari. I can't say I can't understand the feeling because I actually feel like having sex is basically just as what she said. It's just a hole in a rod. But we do seek something more than just that. That I can't I can't say that that's wrong to do, or I don't know. I can't say for a fact that everyone wants it. Something more than just physical boundings, physical pleasure. She took a step forward, training her gun on me.
もう一度聞くが、そんなに私が嫌いか？私は移民だが、美貌には自信があるし、頭も切れる。昨年の国際射撃試合では準優勝の成績を収めている。何よりこの若さで特別高等人の最終試験指導教官の地位に抜擢されたキャリアがある。この国で私より有能な女は絶対にいないぞ。
She had a strange glint in her eyes.
考え直せ、阿久津。自分の将来を考えるのだ。頭のいいお前ならわかるはずだろ。
I slowly hung my head. Miss Hosuke, I met her gaze head on. Place you on the same level as the scum I encountered in the slums. Hosuke snorted derisively. She bit her lip. Her expression began to transform. I drew my head back in disgust for the scene before me. Her laughter invaded my skull, sending tremors of fear throughout my entire body. This is all too horrifying. What sort of life would you need to have lived in order to be able to make an expression like that? The witch before me slowly formed her lips into words.
先生、ちょっと嫉妬しちゃうな。
The utter malice dripping from her voice sent chills down my spine.
ここまで私の思惑通りになるとは。お前も知っての通り、あの囚人はお前たちの恋路を盛り上げるためのかませ犬に過ぎん。分かっていながらお前たちは恋に落ちた。分かっていながらどうにもならなかった。素晴らしいラブストーリーじゃないか、阿久津。
She loomed over me, an insane glint in her eyes.
実に両辱の死骸がある。
What a crazy asshole. She was reveling in this.
これからサイカミーナを捕らえ、見るも無残な方法で処刑するとしよう。
Execute. I could barely manage to spit out the word.
そうだな。断頭台がいい。
You think they'll let you do something so lawless?
許されるさ。言っておくが、貴様が頼みの綱にしている法務省の役人など私の犬に過ぎんぞ。
What?
そう、私の小便を飲んで喜んでいたな。
Okay. Had I underestimated her? And what crime is Mina-san guilty of exactly?
まだわからんか。私は一度お前の体を求めたことがあったな。
That was when Saika-san had fallen ill due to her mushroom allergy.
お前の腰に手を回した時ちょっと仕掛けを打たせてもらったのだよ。
Are you serious? A bug? Hozuki smiled.
禁止されているはずの詩を書いておいて許されると思うのか？
So she had known.
すべて分かっていたのだよ。初々しいセックスだったな。あ、靴？
I wanted to spit in her face.
それでどうする？あ、
Oh, sorry. She pointed her gun at my forehead.
両腕を後ろに縛られて拳銃を突きつけられる。敗北はすなわち愛する女の死だ。お前がこの危機的状況をどう切り抜けるのか見ものなのだが。
I held my breath and waited for an opening.
どうした？
She had most likely already released the safety.
お前はこう思っている。この拳銃さえ奪えれば目の前の高慢な女を黙らせることができると。なぜならこいつはか弱い移民の女だ。背も低いし腕力なら絶対に負けない。拳銃を奪い逆に銃口を突きつけてやる。その上でミーナさんと自分を解放するよう脅迫する。
Exactly.
できるかな？
I answered, I can.
どうやって？
There's one crucial difference between you and me.
面白そうだ。聞こう。
You've already reached the top of the stairs of power. However, I've still got my hands on the railings as I climb up. Railing, sorry.
つまり？
You're overconfident.
鋭い意見だ。
I suppressed my breathing and waited for a chance. There's one more.
ほう。
You'll not kill me. You want to leave me alive so you can use me as your successor.
気づいたか。
Another example of your overconfidence.
鋭い意見だが、やむを得ず発砲してしまう場合もあるかもしれんな。
Her smile brimmed with confidence. It was about time to get things started.
阿久津よ。最後にもう一度だけ聞くが、私に従う気はないのだな。
I believe I told you when we first met. I began gathering strength into my fist.
社会にはびこる。
Just so you know, and trample them. I jerked my head out of the way. Hozuki's finger went for the trigger, but I extended my arm forward at the same instant. She must have been confused by the presence of one of the arms she had brought down. It took only a second. I slammed my palm into the hand Hozuki was using to hold her gun. Her prized gun flew into the air without getting so much as a chance to fire. Hozuki bent over in an attempt to pick up her gun. She left herself completely open in the process. I dropped my right shoulder squarely into her back. She was even lighter than I had expected. Hozuki crumpled to the floor as soon as I felt the impact of her body. That cold, black iron lay within range. I picked up the gun, convinced of my victory. She had pulled herself to her feet by the time I took aim. Looks like this is it. We both glared at each other as we breathed raggedly.
手が自由だったか。
Thanks to Saburo. Apparently, he didn't realize it until yesterday. You know, I looked down on Saburo, but the only reason he refused to accept my offer was because of the possibility of our conversation being listened in on.
確かに、樋口は電子機械技術のスペシャリストだったな。
Indeed. You'd never expect it from looking at him, but he claims to be able to make a code that won't be cracked for 30 years.
特別高等人になって惚れた女を助けるとか言っていたのだがな。
Well, judging by what I had heard from him, that woman of his is strong enough to get by without his help. He really was a weird guy.
お前を縛り付けて現れたのは私を慢心させるための作戦だったわけか。
You listened to our conversation in front of the school, right?
その後は筆談か手話で手はずを整えたというわけか。
Her voice held a tinge of regret. It's over. Your overconfidence was your downfall. The situation was exactly the opposite of what it was a few moments before. I trained the muzzle on Hosuke's forehead.
終わり？
I trust you already know what my demands are.
サイカミーナの義務を解消しろと。
I also want my post to be located near where Minasan is assigned.
それは無理な相談だ。
So her authority did not extend that far. Very well. I shall resign then. I'll have you ensure the safety of both of us. A smile disappeared from Hosuke's face.
最終試験で一人の合格者も出せなかったとあれば、私の地位も失墜する。
Oh, sorry. Damn, this music is kind of
最
epic.
終試験で一人の合格者も出せなかったとあれば、私の地位も失墜する。よって、それも却下する。
You're still this stubborn with a gun pointed in your face. It would seem there was no choice but to flee to a foreign country.
どうした？結局私を殺して逃げるしか選択肢はないのだぞ。
Hosuke did not seem concerned about her own impending death.
歌んのか？
Honestly, I had to admire her for her persistence. I shall not hesitate to kill you. I tensed the arm holding the gun. There was no possibility of missing her at this range. Hosuke's eyes remained alert, searching for any opportunity. She arched her brow.
どうした？撃て！
As you wish. Hosuke's face burned itself into my retinas. She bent over and moved to plow into me. Her movements were swift, but not swift enough. I moved my finger and pulled the trigger. Of course. I stared. I couldn't help but to stare. My moment of astonishment seemed to last an eternity. I knew I had pulled the trigger. The trigger of the gun that Ari, Ruli, and Hosuke had prized above all others. A gun which was no more useful than scrap metal. Ugh. My vision blurred. This is exactly what Hosuke did to us, you know? Like, she designated our way of thinking into thinking that as long as we can disarm her, it's gonna be victory assured, right? And as it turns out, there's not even a bullet inside of the gun. Blows rained down upon me again and again. The world around me faded to white. I couldn't think straight. By the time I understood that I'd been dealt a concussion, I was already lying on the floor.
固定概念だな。阿久津。
What?
拳銃には弾が入っているのが当たり前か？
I couldn't muster any strength. She must have aimed for my vitals. Damn, she's short as fuck. You kept an unloaded gun pointed at me at all time?
よく考えればわかることだったのにな。
She spoke reprovingly.
確かに私は女だ。背も低いし、腕力ではお前に勝ちようがない。どうにもならない差があった。ならば拳銃を使うか？だが、私はお前を殺したくない。局員連中を使ってお前を捕らえるのでは、決定的な敗北感を味わわせることもできない。かといって、私一人が体術で正面切って戦えば分が悪い。
Ugh, she was right.
お前は私が拳銃の腕におごっていると思っていた。だから必ず拳銃に頼って自分を追い詰めてくるだろうと考えていた。
Hosuke hadn't wanted to kill me, so why would she have to use a gun? Why would she have used the gun? I should have realized that to begin with.
ならばお望み通り拳銃をくれてやればいい。勝利を確信させてやればいい。
And she hadn't let the opportunity afforded to her by my carelessness pass her by. That's a really hard sentence to say.
つまりこの拳銃は最初からお前を慢心させるための道具に過ぎなかったのだよ。
All these bullshit traps, dude. My god. I used my trap card. Empty gun. So you'd show that thing off every time we met just to...
お前を私の指定した檻に誘うためだ。
So I had been the overconfident one.
余裕ぶって私に拳銃を突きつけたりせずに殴り殺しておけばよかったのになあ。
Agreed. Giving you a painless death was a mistake anyway. She had planned this all from the beginning then. I heard the sound of the door opening.
マサオミ
People came shuffling in. Saburo's voice sounded pained. He was most likely bound.
ちくしょう話しやがれ
樋口よ、お前もなかなか頑張ったがあと一歩だったな。
天帝の盗聴に気づいたのによ。
Kozuki smiled happily.
私はお前が私の盗聴に気づいているということに気づいていた。
冗談だろ。
樋口の諜報関係に関する能力は知っていた。盗聴電波の周波数も平易に設定していたから、お前は試験の途中で私の盗聴に気づくだろうと考えていた。だから必ずそれを逆用してくると思った。
She suddenly stamped down on my back.
まだまだだな。人間、相手をはめようと思っている時には視野が狭くなるものだ。自らの計画に固執し、それ以外の選択肢を取ろうとしなくなる。
True. I can't deny that, like I said. You already scolded about this before. At the very least, though, Masaomi didn't forget what she thought him, right?
私が唯一恐れていたのは、お前たちがなりふり構わず私に襲いかかってくることだった。腕力に物を言わせ攻撃を仕掛けられればひとたまりもなかっただろう。だから私は種をばらまいた。お前たちが策を練る種を。それは盗聴であり空の拳銃だった。
She sneered.
お前たちは無駄に頭を使った。頭のいいお前たちにはまだまだ教育が必要だな。
She kicked my back.
そう、暴力という名の教育が
Ugh.
弱さという種に暴力という水をまいて慎重に花をめでるように時間をかけてゆっくりと貴様らを更生させてやる。
I prepared myself for defeat as pain washed over me. No matter how you looked at it, the situation was an inescapable one. Still, I couldn't just give up. Mina-san. At the very least, I had to protect her. At the very least. I had heard that the prisoner was being kept underground. I had a vague idea of what to expect, thanks to Saburo's sci-fi novels. On the first level of the school, there was a secret area located at the end of one of the halls. We were placed in a confined space. Though it was summer outside, it was slightly chilly in here.
Himawari na.
Saburo was huddled up in a corner, looking around at the prison. The only light in the room came from candles set back into the walls. The entrance was an iron door with a window for passing through food, and there was a hole in the corner of the room to relive yourself with. The door wouldn't budge an inch, no matter how forcibly I pushed or pulled it. They've got us completely shut in.
拘束されていないだけマシだけどな。
Wow, we're not restrained. Interesting. Indeed. I wouldn't say escape is impossible at least. Saburo smiled in relief.
よかったぜ。まだ諦めてないんだな。
I'm wholly responsible for our defeat earlier.
おいおい。だからそうやって全部てめえが悪いとか言うのダサいっての。
I really must apologize for looking down on you.
わかったよ。 かっこいいやつだな。
He averted his gaze, embarrassed.
それでどうするんだ？
Escape.
なことは分かってるよ。
Right now, I want to observe the situation for a bit.
というと？
He now had his arms crossed and was staring at the door. They most likely intend to torture us.
げえ！
We'll be trained to follow Hosuke like sheep.
俺 M だから拷問とか耐えらんないよ。
I couldn't tell if he was joking or not, but his body was trembling. Don't worry, we'll get our chance.
その心は？
We were right about Hosuke being overconfident.
そうかね。
No doubt. I felt around my waist. I came upon something small caught against the back of my belt. I yanked the device out, pulled it up to my mouth, and spoke into it. Isn't that right, Hosuke? I threw the transmitter against the wall. I swear, I'll get out of here. Minasan. After some time had passed, I began inspecting the prison walls. You know, for a game that's like really similar, or for a backstory that's like really similar to what Ken was experiencing in Sharin no Kuni, it's definitely like its own thing, right? Even though the same concept was used, but this is like the story is definitely its own thing. I guess because the actors are different. And even though we know the end of the story, it still doesn't mean that it's any less exciting about knowing what's going to happen. Usually, most of the time, when you know about the ending of a story, sometimes you're kind of too lazy to actually know what's going on leading up to that point. But this one, I feel like, did a pretty good job. After some time had passed, I began inspecting the prison walls. They had been constructed out of fragile rock and reinforced by pouring hardened sand into the cracks.
どうだい？
It looks like they only bothered to reinforce this area to the point that the ceiling wouldn't collapse.
どういう意味だ？
That this place is pretty shoddily constructed for a prison. Saburo didn't seem too convinced.
だとしても素手で壁に穴を開けるのは骨が折れるだろうな。
That's true. Some sort of metal tool could be useful here. Furthermore, there's no guarantee that our tunnel would lead to an exit. It seemed best to think of something else. Just then, footsteps rang out from behind the iron door.
天帝かな。
Saburo was correct. Hosuke Ari slid open the door and waltzed into the room, accompanied by a damp breeze.
ごきげんよう。
I instantly ran toward Hosuke. I didn't even have to think about it. I was going to take her down. But my feet came to a screeching halt after I saw the girl standing behind Hosuke. Minasan was subdued by several of Hosuke's subordinates.
感動の再会だな。
Minasan was safe. That fact alone brought me an inner peace. Release Minasan.
話してもいいぞ。お前たちが私に危害を加えないのであれば。
She pulled a gun out of her breast pocket.
今度はちゃんと弾を入れてある。
She pointed the muzzle at Minasan's head.
分かっていると思うが、阿久津と違ってこの女を殺すのには何のためらいもないぞ。
おいおい、やりすぎだろ。
この女には2つの罪がある。1つ、禁止されていたはずの詩を書いたこと。2つ、義務を解消しようとする意思がないこと。
Hosuke was acting as carefree as ever, but what she had to say was well-founded.
今までこいつを担当してきた特別高等人は災禍の亀を恐れて制裁を加えなかったが、私は違う。
And she wasn't joking around. Very well. After I nodded, Hosuke signaled to the men to release Minasan. They pushed her onto the dirty floor of the prison. I ran over and helped her to her feet. She took my hand with a sigh of relief.
ありがとうございます。
Her hand was trembling. You were scared, weren't you? Don't worry. It's okay now. I squeeze her hand tightly.
優しいな、阿久津は。
She still had the gun pointed at Mina-san. Please, lower your gun. She was fighting Mina-san. Saburo, we'll put this on hold for now. I interrupted Saburo's own attempt to find an opening on Hozuki.
分かったよ。
He sighed and leaned against the wall. Mina-san closed her eyes and huddled up.
不思議だな。
Hozuki looked at us curiously.
どうしてサイカのような弱い女に阿久津が惚れているのかな。
She took a step toward us.
どこが魅力なんだ。
Hozuki extended her arm. She placed the barrel of her gun directly against the terrified girl's forehead.
ひまわりのような笑顔も素晴らしい感受性も暴力の前では無力ではないか。
She spoke to Mina-san while directing her eyes at me. She repeated my name in supplication. Supplication? The heck is supplication? The action of asking or begging for something earnestly. Okay. Wow. What a hard word. Kind of like a prayer, I guess. Stop. You can never possibly understand why I fell in love with her. I don't even understand it very well myself. Perhaps, though, that is exactly why I came to love her. You see, she taught me that such values exist in this world in the first place.
ほう。
She lowered her gun, apparently disinterested.
楽しみだな。
Her eyes were vacant.
阿久津が裏切る時が、サイカが裏切られる時が。
わけわかんねえこと言ってんじゃねえよ。俺たちをどうする気だ。
Saburo lost his temper. Hozuki continued on, intoxicated by the situation.
サイカミーナに会えて嬉しかったろ。そうだよな。断頭台に送られているかと思ったものな。
There was nothing I could say.
すぐには殺さんさ。期待すると裏切られるということを教えねばな。これから私はお前たちにいくつかの希望を与えてやろうと思っている。そしてその度に絶望もくれてやる。するとどんなに強がった人間でも諦めるということを学ぶ。
She smiled.
私もそうだった。
She turned her back and left the prison. I pulled myself together and spoke to Mina-san. It's okay now. I held her by the shoulders and looked into her face.
すみません。本当に。私、怖くて。
Yes, you're safe now. Her eyes were unfocused.
いきなり銃を突きつけられて、ここまで歩かされて、何を言っても黙れって怖い目つきで睨まれて、こういう経験初めてで、すみません。
Her breathing was ragged, and she could barely seem to form words.
私どうなってしまうんでしょうか。
Oh no. Oh no. Nothing. You'll be fine. Oh no.
怖いよ。正臣さん。
This is a completely different happenstance compared to what happened in the main game. I embraced her. Her tears trickled down my shoulder, leaving a trail of warmth. Have you calmed down? Eventually, Mina-san stopped shivering.
はい。取り乱してすみませんでした。
She finally managed to smile.
すみませんね。正臣さんの足を引っ張ってばっかりで。
Don't be. I'm glad just to have you here with me. Even if here were a prison.
頑張らなきゃ。正臣さんに嫌われないように頑張らなきゃ。
Her priority was on trying to please me. It had become second nature to her by now.
俺のことは気にせずイチャついていいんだぜ。まあエッチだけは俺が寝ている時にしてくれよな。
Nice face, dude. You're pretty resilient, being able to joke in this situation.
余裕だけが取り柄の男ですから。
So when you start panicking, we should start worrying.
んな暗いことばっかり考えてんじゃねえよ。とりあえず暇だし遊ぼうぜ。
遊ぶんですか？
I could scarcely believe my ears.
俺たちはやばい状況にあるけど時間だけはたっぷりとあるじゃねえか。
What a crazy dude. You have a point.
とりあえず飯でも出ねえかな。
Saburo's cheery demeanor managed to lighten the atmosphere within the prison a bit.
それでさ、リリコはね、言葉を覚えるのが早いのよ。
A day had passed.
リリコちゃんは樋口さんの娘さんですか？
俺の遺伝子を受け継いでいるだけあって優秀だぜ。
Apparently, Ririko was the name of a child he had had with a childhood sweetheart.
いずれみんなでこの町に引っ越してこようと思うんだよね。この町をメッカに俺のハーレム伝説が始まるのだ。
Alright, dude. He burst out into a generic sort of laugh. Oh, yes. Do you think Ken is safe?
ケンちゃん元気のない子だから心配ですね。
まあ信頼できそうな人に頼んでおいたから。
Saburo could not entirely hide his unease. I smiled faintly. Well, that aside, I never thought I would end up becoming a father out of the blue like that.
ですね。私もお母さんになるなんてびっくりです。
俺に何かあった時は頼むぜ。
Don't be so bleak.
そうですよ。樋口さんが拾ってきたんですからね。
Saburo shook his head.
いや、俺って早死にしそうだからさ。
His tone was light, but he didn't seem to be joking.
でもまあ俺が死んでもケンやリリコは立派にやっていけると思うんだよね。俺たちの意志は受け継いでくれるっつうの。
So our children will rise up again, even if we lose to Hosuke Ari here.
まるでひまわりのようですね。
She spoke quietly.
種さえあれば何度でも太陽に向かって顔を向けるんですね。
She nodded. I want to look after the seeds I planted, though.
ん？
There are still things we need to do before leaving everything to the next generation.
なるほど。そういう考えも大事だな。
それは困るな。
Hosuke entered, accompanied by Rusty squeaking. She had no agents with her. However,
ケン！
she was carrying a child.
不穏分子は根絶やしにせねばな。
She wrapped her hands around his small neck.
おいおい、やめてくれよ。悪行にも程があるっての。
やはり樋口は他人が傷つくのが痛くてたまらないタイプの人間だな。
What crime has that child committed? What you are doing is clearly illegal, Miss Hosuke.
阿久津もそうだ。樋口と同じかそれ以上に優しい。だが
She stepped forward with a grin.
お前だけは違うな。私にはわかる。お前は自分だけが助かればそれでいいと思っている。
違います。
そうかな？
Oh, that was definitely the bad feeling I had when she first panicked inside of this prison room. This time she directed her gaze toward me.
こいつはお前との約束を破ったのではないか。
She wrote that poem out of concern for my parents.
だからなんだ？ お前のことを愛しているならば、お前の出世を考えれば筆が止まるはずなのだ。なあ、サイカミーナ、誰でもよかったのだろう。
Oh man. Hozuki is such a good puppet master. She's exactly right. Anyone would have been okay, even if it wasn't Masaomi. Like I said, remember what I said last episode? It was easy to predict what Saika Mina's feelings were gonna be when someone opened up to her or when she can open up to someone. Man, this feels so bad. God damn it, Hozuki. I mean, Masaomi.
お前は自分に優しくしてくれる人なら誰でもいいのだろう。
I actually believe that. Mina-san shook her head.
そうでなければお前の支離滅裂な行動の説明がつかん。愛していると言いながら約束を破り、役に立たなければと言いながら怯えるだけ。これはどういうことなのだ。
Mina-san was weak against personal attacks.
生まれついての品格だか感受性だかなんだか知らんが、阿久津をたぶらかすのはやめてほしいな。
That's enough. I clenched my fist and moved in on Hozuki.
お前が私を殴るより先に赤ん坊の呼吸を止める自信はあるぞ。
I know that.
落ち着け阿久津。腹が減ったろう。
What a fucking insane bitch. We hadn't eaten anything for an entire day.
これからパンを一切れ与えようと思う。
Oh
もっとくれ
no.
よ。3人いるんだぜ。
Oh no. Stop. Oh my god. I don't like where this is going, please. Hozuki smiled and shook her head.
私には予想がつく。そのパンを食べるのはサイカミーナだ。
So can I, damn it.
譲り合い遠慮し合いながらも結局腹を満たすのはこの女だ。すみませんねと口では謝りながらパンを食う。
Man, in some crazy way, this is actually even worse than physical torture that Hozuki Masaomi did in the original game. Oh my god.
ずるいよな。
Man, mental tactics are scary, dude. I shouted back at her, lost in the moment. You're the one being cruel here, Hozuki.
マサオミ、落ち着け。
You've been spouting nothing but nonsense. I realized that Saburo had his hand on my shoulder.
脆いな。やはり恋愛は人を盲目にして冷静な判断力を失わせる。じっくりと引き裂いていかねばな。
She glared at Mina-san once more, then left the room holding Ken. As soon as she shut the door, a plate was passed through the slit. I calmed myself and picked up the slice of bread. Here, Mina-san.
いりません。
Oh no. It's fine. Please don't worry about what Hozuki said.
いらないです。とても食べる気になれませんから。
いいから食べなって。俺たちは霞を食べても生きていけるんだから。
いや、本当にあんなことを言われてこれを食べてしまっては私は本当に引きよ者になってしまいます。
No. You should be proud that you're a coward. You should embrace who you are. That's how I feel anyway. Instead of faking bravado, especially in a situation like this, accept who you are. Oh no. I like the part of you that's a coward. Thank you, Masaomi.
ぐー、くせえこいつ。死のう。
God damn it, dude. Saburo mimed choking himself, but Mina-san did not smile.
3等分にしましょう。
Please eat it. It
食べなって。
was almost like we were forcing her. This continued for a while. Minasan finally accepted the bread, a tear in her eye. We're playing right into her hands, man. Oh my god. Oh my god, I feel something in my stomach that's not good right now.
すみません。
Another day passed. My throat and eyes ached, but I refused to surrender to something of this level.
にしても、ケンが人質に取られたが。
Indeed, and we can't do a thing.
不幸なやつだな、ケンも。
I had to agree to that. Oh yes, Minasan. I called out to Minasan, who was huddled up in a corner of the room looking depressed.
なんでしょう。
She had no energy. How about writing some poetry? It could help distract you from the situation.
いいんじゃないの？暇つぶしになるよ。
しかし、義務で。
There's no point in worrying about obligations now that we've come this far.
そうですか。
She cheered up just a little.
あ、でも、書くものがないです。
ペンと紙ならあるよ。
Saburo grinned and began to hunt around in his pants.
俺の股間って4次元につながってるから。
Alright, dude. He pulled out a ballpoint pen and a notebook about the size of his hand. That's disgusting.
うるせえよ。
You have anything more useful in there?
覗くな、バカ。
Seriously, are you hiding anything else?
武器はないぞ。あとはスプーンとペンライトくらいだな。
A spoon? Perhaps you could whittle away at the wall with that. No, are you kidding me? Of course, there was no guarantee that the other side would grant us an escape route. I searched about the prison once more. I had made sure to confirm the cardinal directions of each wall when we were brought here. If we were to dig through the west wall, we would probably come out around the back of the school. This wasn't a very practical solution, however. I had no idea how many years it would take. Minasan leaned against the wall and sat down. She had a pen in hand and looked deep in thought. Tell me when it's finished. Minasan?
はい。
Already immersed in it?
すみません。なんだか嬉しくなってしまって。
She looked embarrassed. If you could, I would appreciate it if you could explain the meaning as well. I'm a bit dense when it comes to these things.
官能的な詩だといいな。
Simpleton. Our own spirits began to pick up thanks to the improvement in Minasan's mood. It had likely been around 48 hours. He had given us only the meanest sips of water during this time. Doesn't thinking so intensely make you hungry?
そうですね。
Minasan had been staring at the scrap of paper the entire time. Every now and then, she would move the pen slightly and sigh. Suddenly, I heard a noise from behind the iron door and bolted over to Minasan. Hide the paper, exactly. Quickly! I grabbed the notebook only a split second before the door opened.
調子はどうかな？
元気だよ。元気だから剣を返してくれよ。
こんな日の当たらない場所に赤ん坊を閉じ込めるのは良くないぞ。
いいから返してくれっての。
しかし、あれは笑わない子だな。
Kozuki had no intention of dignifying Saburo with an argument. What do you want today?
そろそろ暴力の一つでも振るってやろうと思ってきたのだ。
Oh. Her frosty eyes turned to Minasan.
何を隠した？
Her tone was peremptory. Peremptory? Gosh, these new words. Final. Okay. Final. Like, without giving any kind of, you know. It's kind of hard to explain. But basically, yeah, in a very, so that you don't have any way of hiding what you're doing. What are you talking about?
貴様に聞いていない。
Hozuki drew her gun and approached Minasan.
正直に答えろ。
Hozuki's eyes focus on Minasan's right hand.
ペンを持っているのはなぜだ。
それは。
よこせ。
She handed over the pen, her voice shaking. Hozuki snapped it in two.
何をしていた。
Minasan. She shot the trembling girl an overpowering look.
詩を書いていたのだろ。
She could not answer that truthfully.
どうなんだ。
If she did, terrible violence would await her.
私の勘違いか。書いていたのかいないのかどっちなんだ。もし自分を表現しようなどという意志を込めて移民音楽の詩などを書いているのならば制裁を与えねばな。
She shrunk back, her face pale.
認めろ。
その私は
Hozuki placed the barrel to her throat.
素直に認めれば阿久津と樋口に食事を与えてやろう。
Minasan drew back on her tiptoes in an attempt to avoid the gun.
どうした？お前は殴られるが阿久津たちは腹を満たすことができるのだぞ。
Minasan. She closed her eyes and began to speak timidly. She gulped.
書いてないです。
She lied.
ほうほう。
She gave us one of her satisfied smiles, whereupon a whistling noise could be heard. Hozuki had slapped Minasan across the cheek with her left hand.
私は子供でな。
Exactly.
子供は嘘つきと臆病者が大嫌いだろ。
No, you're not even going to honor her like in the first place. What an asshole. Stop! Before I could even stretch out my arm, I was staring down the barrel of Hozuki's gun.
いや、本当に不思議だよ、阿久津。
Ugh.
この女のどこがいいのだ。嘘つきの裏切り者ではないか。
Shut up. You'd be hard pressed to find someone who wouldn't put themselves first in the face of danger.
そう言いながら少し寂しかったのではないか。
She's right. See, this is what happens, man, when I feel like when your feelings of love is not from yourself but from a situation that you were forced into. You are manipulated until the end. My god. What?
失望を禁じ得ないのではないか。恋人ならたとえ自分がどうなろうとも相手を助けるものだと思うがな。
Enough. I looked over at Minasan. The only thing on her mind was a desire to be liberated from this terror. She repeated those words again and again.
阿久津よ。人間はいつまでも同じ感情を抱いていられないものだぞ。
That's true. She left after proclaiming as such in a pleasant tone of voice. What did I love about Minasan? No! Wow. You know, Hozuki bounding Kenichi at the original Sharin no Kuni was actually like his saving grace. He wanted Kenichi to be like the most useless He wanted him to be the most useless so that everyone else would be strong. Oh my god. Hozuki was actually a fucking god, dude. This is rough. Her dazzling smile and her innate sensitivity. I discovered something new to love about her every day. Minasan, please pay her no heed. It's okay now. I'm sorry. This is my fault. I shouldn't have suggested that you write poetry.
すみません。私こそ。
Tears fell from her bloodshot eyes.
私、正臣さんと樋口さんを。
She wouldn't stop apologizing. The girl before me was so very weak, which was exactly why I had to protect her. Which is exactly why she was so dear to me. Those feelings. I bit my lip to endure the sudden surge of emotion washing over me.
すみません。私、ダメです。ダメな人間です。
Those feelings might have been nothing more than masturbatory. Masturbatory? That... Wow. Isn't that a bad word? Wow. Yup. Masturbatory. Involving masturbation. Excessively self-absorbent or self-indulgent is the second one. So basically that's like only something we want to believe in. It might not actually be true. So basically what I said in the last episode, these feelings that he thought was real was being questioned, right? Because unlike Kenichi, he didn't have a childhood friend. Minasan was not his childhood friend. Their bonds was just not strong enough. They've been living together for like what? Maybe 2 weeks at most. It had been 5 days by my count. They had finally supplied us with adequate food and water.
生き返るぜ。
Things could get pretty dicey if they continued to feed us this infrequently. It was all over if our limbs went numb and we started hallucinating. I suppose we can just eat cockroaches if it comes down to it.
たくましいね、正臣は。
Saburo and I were still going strong, but Minasan was another story. She stood vacantly, her eyes dim.
元気出しなって。
She would offer only curt replies to anything said to her. She hadn't written any poetry since the earlier encounter. Being hit by Hozuki must have been quite the shock for her.
私のせいですよね。
Huh?
何が？
私が阿久津さんを好きにならなければこんなところに閉じ込められることもなかったのに。
Wow. That's something that definitely Masaomi didn't want to hear. Oh my god. Oh, why? Why would you say that? If you're going to be like that, then it's also my fault for falling in love with you.
好きですか？
Yes.
本当に？
She had lost what little confidence she had. I quietly embraced her.
見捨てないでください。
I stroked her hair. Hozuki decided to show up right about then.
朗報があるぞ。
She was holding Ken.
まさか剣を返してくれるのかい？
そのまさかだよ。
Saburo's face brightened considerably.
ただし彩花がまた私に殴られるわけだが。
意味がわかんねえよ。
簡単なことだよ。甘い阿久津に代わって私が彩花を成長させるための試練を与えてやるのだ。
Trial?
彩花が この赤ん坊の親にふさわしいかどうか試してやる。
She turned to Minasan as she spoke.
おい、子供を返してほしいだろ。返してほしかったら私の目を見てちゃんとお願いしろ。
Kozuki glared at Minasan. Her lips trembled.
おい、笑顔を絶やすな。貴様はそういう義務を負っているのだぞ。黙れ。
Her tone was enough to give me chills. And I wasn't even her target.
どうした？ちゃんとお願いしてみろ。自分の子供だろ。
She covered her mouth with both hands, overwhelmed with nausea.
なんだそのざまは。そんなことで母親になれるのか。
私母親だなんてそんな
Minasan's legs were on the verge of giving out.
なんだ、お前はこの子の親じゃなかったのか。
ケンちゃんは樋口さんが拾ってきた子で。
ミーナちゃん。
I couldn't hide my surprise at her words either.
無理です。私怖い。
I couldn't think straight. All she had to do was look into her eyes and say to give Ken back, and it would be all over with. It would all be over with. But I suppose for someone as weak as Minasan, even that would be difficult. So Ken wasn't really the child of all three of us then. Kozuki laughed gleefully.
かわいそうになってきたな。
Man, what?
さいかみーなよ。私も悪いと思うが、お前も相当な悪人だな。いいぞ、こうやって悪を共有していこうじゃないか。
She suddenly threw Ken toward me. I caught him.
くれてやる。なかなか面白い見せ物だったぞ。
She was confident in her domination. She dropped her guard, but I wasn't in the right state of mind to attempt an attack.
すみません、正臣さん。すみません。
I stared at Minasan in a detached sort of way.
だから言ったろ、阿久津。私に従えと。こんな女のためにお前の輝かしい人生を棒に振るのか。それはこの女にも魅力はあるのだろう。だが一皮むけばこの通りではないか。
Oh my god, stop being so realistic, damn it. Oh. You're making me feel very conflicted. I could do nothing but shake my head.
暴力はいいぞ、阿久津。人間の本質を暴いてくれる。
The true nature of a person. So Minasan's true nature was that of a weak person who could only think of herself?
だんだん希望が絶望に変わってきたな。
No one could offer her a response. Just how much time has passed since they threw us in here? It had most likely been around 2 weeks, but I had no way of checking. Minasan had spent most of her time with her mouth shut. She lay curled up in a fetal position, seemingly lacking the will to carry on. Saburo was holding Ken. He spoke up suddenly, apparently having come up with an idea.
壁おかしくねえか。
I was thinking the same thing.
ここだろ
Saburo pointed to the western wall. It seems to have been repaired at some point or another.
しかもちょっぱ屋で直したって感じだな
This is one of those hopes that she had given them again, isn't it? Oh no. He bent over and examined the wall. The pattern on it was obviously different from the rest. It looks like a person could fit through here if they crawled, doesn't it?
掘ってみる価値がありそうだな
I nodded in agreement and grabbed Saburo's spoon. I tried digging into the wall. The soil was surprisingly soft, offering little resistance. The fact that they had repaired this means that they had occasion to repair it. Probably because the prisoner from before had tried digging through here as well. Then they had to have repaired it because the tunnel linked up with an escape route.
正臣
I heard footsteps descending the stairs on the other side of the door. I instantly hid the spoon in my pocket.
久しぶりだな。
いやー天帝今度はなんだい
いや何そろそろアクスたちが脱出方法に思い至る頃かと思ってな。
She stared at me.
と思ったが。
Apparently we had let her down.
おい
A voice rang out from behind her. A roar resounded throughout the cell.
嫌だ
What the
やめ
hell?
てくれ
What the hell? A man I had seen before was being restrained by the agents. He was the prisoner. He was desperately pleading for his life.
こんなところにまた閉じ込められるなんて
I tensed up and watched Hozuki.
お仲間に加えてやろうと思ったのだ。
そんな先生の言う通り少女をさらったじゃないか
いい演出だったぞ。
My theory about his sudden appearance had been correct then.
しかしそれだけでお前のような政治犯を無罪にする権限は私にもなくてな。
So, she had just lied about him being a rapist in order to get me riled up.
残念だがまたここで暮らしてもらおう。
やめろやめてくれ
He screamed and tried to shake off the guards restraining him, but it was no use.
さてこいつは1年もここに閉じ込められていた囚人だ。じっくりと教えをこい。私を倒す計画でも練るといい。
The expression on Hozuki's face changed. The man suddenly began shouting at us.
壁だ
No, this is definitely also a trick, isn't it? You can't fool me anymore, girl. Oh my god. They're not feeding us enough food. These guys are not thinking straight.
ボイラー室学園の地下ボイラー室に繋がっている壁
This is definitely a trick.
黙れ
Her words would not reach his ears, as powerful as they were.
壁だ
Our eyes met. He was no longer sane, but his insanity itself proved that he was telling the truth.
少し掘り進めば
Suddenly, gunfire echoed through the room. Blood poured from the man's forehead. He crumpled to the floor. Hozuki Ari lowered her gun. A muffled scream escaped Minasan's lips.
とんだハプニングだ。
She left with her attendant, looking displeased. No, this is a trap. Saburo.
あ
We approached the man's corpse. I placed my hands upon his face, which had formed into a mask of terror and death. The face of a man whose name I didn't even know. Oh, sorry. I turned him over on his stomach, thinking it would make things easier for Minasan to handle. The wall, huh?
間違いないな
We could hide the soil by throwing it into the hole we use for our toilet. The problem is, how do we dig this without them noticing it?
天帝が来た時に穴が開いてりゃまずいよな
Hozuki made it a habit to appear irregularly. We needed to trick her somehow. Well, we have plenty of time.
だな。考えるとしようか。
We lost ourselves in thought. Ken watched us all the while, a defiant gleam in his eyes. Can't believe Ken is living in a fucking prison, even when he was still a fucking baby. I was beginning to get drowsy. It was probably late at night.
俺、寝るわ。ケンが泣かないように頼むぜ。
I nodded and took Ken from Saburo. He was a quiet child. He didn't laugh or cry. Minasan was more of a child than Ken was.
寒いよ。あったかいお布団で寝たいよ。
Minasan. I approached her.
もう放っておいてください。
I had taken to hugging Minasan whenever she complained about the cold.
もう無理ですよ。正臣さんと樋口さんは平気かもしれないですけど、私みたいなお嬢様育ちの人間には耐えられないです。
The cold and lack of food had taxed her to the breaking point.
嫌いになりました。
I shook my head.
嫌いになりましたよね。
Oh, sorry.
嫌いになりましたよね。正臣さん。
I looked at her with pity in my heart.
本当は分かってるんです。こんな自分ダメだって、変わらなきゃって。でも無理なんです。怖くて痛くて。
I handed Ken to Minasan. Here, hold him. He can't get to sleep. He's your child, isn't he? Sure, Saburo might have picked him up, but all three of us decided on his name together, didn't we?
でも私にはケンちゃんのお母さんになる資格なんて。
I'm getting fed up with all of your complaints.
すみません。
And while we're at it, you can stop with the apologies too. I forced Ken upon her. She took him from me with hesitant arms. She couldn't seem to calm down, even as she held him. Warm, isn't it? He's alive. You're holding a living creature who is most definitely weaker than you are. She bit her lip. But he doesn't cry. Not even now. Tears welled up in her eyes.
泣いてるのは、泣いてばかりなのは私。
Teardrops began to spill down her cheeks. Her lips mouthed the words, "Poor thing."
ごめんね。
I took in the sight. Her expression was ever so gentle. Her gaze was weak, but it was filled with affection.
ごめんね、ケンちゃん。ごめんね。
She looked like someone offering a prayer. It warmed my heart a bit simply watching her.
寒いよね。ごめんね。
She held the child firmly, not permitting what heat he possessed to fade away. She embraced the child to whom she was not related by blood. We decided to wait until after Hosuke's next appearance to work on the wall. This turned out to be a wise decision. Hosuke inspected the walls immediately upon entering the room, clearly worried about what the man had told us before he had died.
ごきげんよう、諸君。
No one responded.
閉じ込められてもうどれくらい経ったと思う？
Probably about 1 month.
素晴らしい。まだまだ頭は使っているようだな。
Don't underestimate me.
それでそろそろ降参した方が得策だということを考えないのか？
Sorry, for some reason, my emotions, my emotions were showing there when I said that sentence. Actually, we were right in the middle of plotting a way to kill you. Sensing danger, Hosuki's arm went to her chest.
なるほど。少しだけ阿久津を侮っていたようだな。この状況でまだ陰りを見せないか。
俺も忘れてもらっちゃ困るぜ。
やはり一人くらい殺しておくか。
She pointed the gun at Mina-san. Go ahead and pull the trigger. Just be aware that it means I will launch a suicide attack on you after doing so.
右に同じ。
やれやれ。長引きそうだな。
Hosuke remained unshaken by our threats. She backed up to a safe distance, then turned around.
あの
A small groan arose as Hosuke was leaving. It came from the girl holding the baby.
待ってください。
Hosuke turned back around, an incredulous look on her face.
おお、お前が私たちと同じように人に意見を発する動物だということを忘れていたよ。
Mina-san seemed to be requesting something.
毛布を
Oh, sorry. Oh my god, sorry.
毛布を一枚
She had trouble forming the words.
いただけませんか？毛布を一枚
Her eyes were directed at the floor.
こっちへ来い。阿久津と樋口は少し後ろに下がれ。
Saburo and I looked at each other, aware that we had no choice but to obey.
なんだって？もう一度言ってみろ。
ですからその
こっちへ来いと言っている。
はい
She gingerly took a step forward. Ken seemed to be asleep, clutched against Mina-san's chest.
来ました。
Hosuke scowled at her, more irritated than before.
毛布が欲しいだと？
お願いします。
理由は？
寒いからです。
Hosuke's right arm lunged forward, accompanied by cold laughter. Mina-san's frail body slammed against the floor. Hosuke pointed her gun at Mina-san when I tried to close some distance between us.
ダメだろ。サイカ？もっと他人に気を使えよ。みんなが寒いのに自分だけいい思いをしようなんて義務に違反しているにも程があるぞ。
Hosuke was smiling.
おいおい、赤ん坊が押しつぶされてしまうぞ。
Mina-san was clutching Ken to her chest tightly, perhaps seeking comfort from him.
許してください。殴らないで。
Hosuke put a stop to her violence, apparently satisfied by the mess before her. Mina-san,
やはりサイカは生かさず殺さずが良さそうだな。
she directed that one at me.
この女が愛するに値しないと分かれば阿久津の目も覚めるだろう。よく見ろ。弱い者はより弱い者にすがろうとするのだ。
ケンちゃん。
Mina-san kept calling his name. She continued to seek comfort from him.
こうなる前に我々が裁いてやるのだ。わがままな犯罪者どもが人に迷惑をかける前に鉄槌をくれてやるのが我々の仕事だ。
I found myself listening to her.
考 えを改めろ、阿久津。お前は間違っている。
I gasped. I was unable to find a response. I simply watched Hosuke leave the room in silence. Minasan was trembling upon the floor. Saburo rushed over to her before I did. A day had passed. Minasan remained speechless in a corner, still holding Ken.
正臣、重大発表。
Saburo's breathing was labored.
俺、ちょいと病気っぽい。
Beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. It's a pretty lame joke for you, Saburo.
いや、俺って結構滑るよ。
Every now and then, he would clutch his stomach.
いやまあ、大したことはないんだけどさ。
It was cold enough in here to disrupt one's sleep. We only got one meal a day, and that was if we were lucky. The air was dank, and the prisoner's corpse was beginning to smell. Right, he actually got left here, Jesus. And worst of all, we hadn't seen the sun in quite some time. It was a miracle we had all lasted this long without falling ill in these conditions.
そろそろ穴を掘ろうじゃねえか。
Good idea. We had come up with a plan to attack Hosuke when she entered and let her guard down. But with her recent vigilance, I think that's a typo there, and Saburo's current condition, that no longer seemed like an effective strategy. Now, about camouflaging the hole we dig.
どうするんだ？
It wasn't a great plan, but we didn't have many options. We'll build a sand cover to place over the hole.
土の塔？
The soil packed in these walls is similar enough to clay. If we trample down the dirt we dig out of the wall, we should be able to make a cover big enough to hide the hole. Saburo looked confused.
でも、ちょっと調べられたらバレねえか？周りの壁と明らかに違うだろうし、土で作った戸が穴にぴったりはまるわけじゃねえだろうから、隙間もできちまうぜ。
We will simply have someone sit in front of the wall to shield it from Hosuke's eyes each time she enters.
それは俺の役目かね。
No, we'll have Mina-san do it. You've always been standing at attention, just waiting for her to drop her guard. You'd be suspicious if you suddenly started sitting to the side. Furthermore, Mina-san barely even registered in Hosuke's radar. Just do what you can do to distract her.
オッケー。襲いかかろうとしてればいいのね。
I nodded and squatted in front of the wall. Keep your ears against the door, just in case. Saburo understood what I was getting at.
天帝の足音に気づいたらすぐ教えるわ。
She had come by just yesterday, so I doubted she would be making another appearance so soon. I went over the situation. Saburo was ill, and Mina-san was in a state of lethargy. I couldn't afford to be too optimistic. This was probably our first and last chance to escape this prison. Apparently, the destination of our tunnel was the school's boiler room. I just hoped that it wasn't too far to go. My eyes drifted to the prisoner's corpse. If they had repaired his tunnel in a hurry, then the wall would be brittle and easy to dig through. Let's do this. Saburo, if you're not feeling well, then feel free to help yourself to my portions of the food and water they supply us with.
なんだよ、友情か？
Your cooperation is indispensable to this operation. We're not necessarily friends. Saburo laughed.
お前って本音を隠すために理屈っぽくなるのな。
I clicked my tongue. About that book. That science fiction novel.
ああ、あれがどうした？
I gripped the spoon. When we get out of here, you're going to lend me the next volume. We completed our clay cover after 3 hours of labor. We now had camouflage, as crude as it was. I set it next to the hole so that we could cover it up quickly, should the need arise, and continued my digging. I was on edge, just waiting for Hosuke's next arrival. As I had predicted, the mud wall proved fragile. I scrapped out stone and worn concrete as I progressed onward. I handed the dirt to Saburo, and he disposed it in the toilet hole. Sweat began to cloud my vision. I tried to force life into my aching arms, desperately yearning to create an escape route. But after an hour of digging with all my strength, all I had created was a hole just big enough to fit one's head into. This was a long and tedious work, enough to gnaw away at one's reserve.